What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, of course, Craig Mish. Craig, it's been so long. I got like crazy sick. I ended up with like this crazy wook flu that I'm still reeling from right now, but we passed on last week's games and live stream. This week, though, I want to hit it. We got the divisional round for the NFL, plus we've got the national championship. How you been?
I'm doing well. I missed you last week. Sorry, we missed you. Happy New Year. Good to be back with you here again. And as we capped off our year.
Is this our first stream of the new year? I don't even know what day it is, dude.
I think it is. I don't
even know what day it is right now. What day is it?
It is Thursday. I'm going to Billy Joel tomorrow, so we have to knock this out tonight.
Favorite sleeper Billy Joel song? Which one is it?
Stiletto.
Has he ever played that recently in recent shows?
He plays it all the time.
Does he? I don't know.
Yeah. I've been to too many of these. This is probably my 10th time or something like that.
How many All for Lena's have you gotten?
A couple.
It's a big favorite of mine.
A couple.
Big favorite of mine.
So when we last left you, neither of us were finalists for the FSGA Host of the Year for Gambling and Analyst of the Year for Gambling. So congratulations to you.
Congratulations to you
for making it to the finals. Thank you very much. We both made it to the finals. And why am I proud of that? Well, look, maybe we'll win. Maybe we won't. You never know the answer in these sort of things that happen. But I will tell you this, that when we do these live streams, and those of you who are watching live or you go back and you watch it on demand, you all need to understand something. That Howard and I put our own money and a lot of it up to be in the contest that we're in. And that's not to say that other people don't, because I certainly don't keep tabs on anybody's gambling activities, because I think that that's a private endeavor and nobody really should be having to post what they've won or what they've lost. But I think that is important to note for those of you who do watch, because I do pay attention to people who are on video streams, live streams. I listen to a lot of gambling podcasts. I follow people on Twitter who do gamble. And I obviously understand that in some states, legally, you can't bet on sports. But from our perspective, as I told Howard 2 years ago before we started this, it was really important for us to have our money where our mouth is and to participate and give opinions on sports wagering and gambling. I think that you need to be in it in some way. It's very easy to do a podcast or a video stream or an audio stream and simply run down all the games and give all the picks, and after 15 picks say that you went 10-5. It's a lot different than actually betting on them, because you would never bet 15 games on a Sunday. You probably would never bet 5 games on a Sunday. And if you did, you probably didn't have a great season. So for us, at the beginning of the year, we put thousands of dollars up between Howard and I at Wager Alarm and Fantasy Alarm, and then a couple of grand more for the Golden Nugget football contest, because we think it's important not just to have transparency with the picks, but to back up what we say when we're here on the live stream. Our picks have money involved. In the end, we were above 500 in both of the contests. We did not place. We did not win money, but we will get right back at it last year with those two contests, and we're considering entering a third for next year. So thank you to everybody who voted for me and Howard to getting to this point in terms of finalists. But know this, we feel very strongly about backing our picks up financially, because we think that, or at least I know that I do very strongly, Howard. I think that that's a real important part of the industry. Are the records important, wins and losses? Look, it's not easy. You could be a great analyst and still finish below 500 for a season. There's no question about that. But 2 years running now, if you look at our win percentage, we're somewhere between the 50 and 60%, which is where you want to be. We haven't had a losing season in the 2 years that we've done this. We haven't had a losing contest in the 2 years that we've done this. So we certainly have given out good advice, and hopefully we'll continue to. Unfortunately, we missed last week. We would have won 3 out of 4, but we had a little bit of an emergency that we couldn't do the live stream. So this week we'll try and do better. With that being said, we can move on to the divisional round of the NFL, and of course, we will talk about Monday night's college football.
College football. All right, first of all, before we get to the college football and talk about that, can we just address the fact that it's dragged on a ridiculously long time? Why in the world are we still?
You're right. You're right.
Like it's January 13th is the national championship.
Yeah, it's the longest period of time ever between playing. Well, I mean, look, they've only been doing the playoff a couple of years, but it's the longest period of time ever that we've had to wait. It's basically, to me, 3 or 4 days too long. And then the other part of it was
Three
that
or four. Dude, it's a week too long.
yeah, well, they want to build up and they want to give it time, and they can't do it on Saturday or Sunday and interfere with the NFL. The other part that I didn't like about the bowl season, and by the way, if you go back and you watch our bowl stream, again, over 500 for the year with the picks on that too. But if you go back and watch, we did not really pick a lot of the last few games, last 3 or 4 games, because those just happened. And I think that what they need to do as far as ending the bowl season needs to end. And I understand it can't always end on the first with the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl and some of the other games they play, but you can't have Appalachian State and Louisiana Lafayette capping off bowl season at the end. That thing needs to end on the second or the third, because I know a lot of us that we do these, and we had them here at Fantasy Alum, these bowl contests where the winner is basically down to that last meaningless game. So that was the only thing that went a little bit long for me. But overall, I was happy with the results. There were a couple of games during the bowl season that didn't go our way, which is, of course, the ones that I do remember. But most importantly, we did take Clemson to beat Ohio State in the semifinal, and to me that game was probably the best college football game that I've seen in the last month. The NFL, we were very fortunate to get 3 out of the 4 really good games this past weekend.
Always tough to recount how you actually built that stack, but for those events where you actually lost it all, you can play it out inch by inch and know everything that's going on. It never leaves you. The bad beats never leave you, and that's just the way it goes.
That's part of it, but I would prefer to make sure that we cover all of our wins and losses as just opposed to the wins.
Of course. Well, again, that's what I think puts us a step ahead of everybody else, is that we're not out here being like, yeah, we're winning. We're talking you through the picks. It's making sense. We're bringing you the good and the bad. And I think that that's really important because, you're right. It is very easy to go through and say, oh, I went, 6-2 and 8 picks last week. You know what? Show me the ticket. We've got all the tickets over at Wager Alarm. And you know what? And everything that we played over at Wager Alarm, I played personally also. So I'm up. Am I up, thousands and thousands of dollars? No, I'm not. But I ain't down.
No, you start with a bankroll at the beginning of the season, and if you make a little money, then that's really the goal. It's all discretionary income. Howard and I are not professional gamblers. I live in a state in Florida that gambling is illegal. Same thing with Howard in California. But you find your ways. Everybody knows the way that this is being done, and certainly we'll still have a lot more streams for you here. We'll have our season win totals for baseball coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll do that. We'll have our March Madness ones. We'll continue to roll. Going back to last week, just real briefly to grade us out there, even though we didn't do the live stream, I don't know how we would grade the Buffalo game. I think that we both would have taken Buffalo. That's what we mentioned. It was 2.5 and 3 in some spots. Online was the spot to get 3. I don't know how at this point of the football season that anybody could play online if you have the ability to buy points and not. I mean, you're down to the end of the year here, okay? Like, buy your points if you need to, because in all likelihood, when you're done with football, you're probably not going to be betting unless you're moving over to college football or the NBA or something else. So we could grade it as a loss or a push. Buffalo was clearly the better team in the game. It was the right side to take, but they blew it in the end, no question about that. We both like Tennessee. Tennessee not only covered, Tennessee won the game. We had a difference of opinion, at least initially, although we never made a pick on it. But I did like Minnesota a lot in that game. I did not think they would beat the Saints. I don't know that they deserved to beat the Saints, but they did end up covering the spread. I like the over in the final game of that series last week between Seattle and Philadelphia. And honestly, that was over before it started, because once Carson Wentz went down, there was almost no way it was going over. But that will factor into some of my opinions this week on the games too, because the takeaways from last week, I thought Houston was really fortunate. I think Tennessee is coming on a little bit. I think Minnesota played their best possible game to beat the Saints, and I think that may expire this week. And I don't think that Seattle was impressive at all. McCown took them down the field several times with an opportunity to tie or win, and then he turned into McCown, which is fair. The guy hadn't played in years. Right. And I was very disappointed watching Seattle play at Philadelphia. I thought that once he went down, they should have won that game 31-7. And it was 17-9 driving down, 4th down, no good. 17-9 driving down. I mean, they should have never been in that spot. So we can kind of start with that and get into the games this week.
All right, let's do it, man. Well, let's start with Seattle because, I too was a little disappointed. And everybody's throwing out all of this Russell Wilson love. And listen, I get it. Russell Wilson is playing very good football. Is Russell Wilson playing lights out football that's like driving everybody insane? No, I don't think he is. I think that this is a team that still relies very heavily on the ground game. It's not requiring Russell Wilson to put this team on his shoulders. It's not requiring him to do a lot of running like we see with Lamar Jackson. Is he doing more running than he did, in week 2 or 3? Maybe. But still, this to me, and we look at the Seattle-Green Bay game, and I guess let's just start here.
Yeah, it's the last game. By the way, the last game on the board is this is the Sunday night game, but it's cool. We could start with any game. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I just figure let's start here. Why not? We were just talking Seattle because,
sure.
I mean, this is a game that I'm having a hard time deciding which way I want to go.
As you should.
Green Bay by 5. There's talk of snow. There's talk of weather. But for me, the whole thing is and here's where the matchup gets. It's Marshawn Lynch, who Pete Carroll says is going to give more work to, with Travis Homer, who's more of a pass-catching back, or at least seems to be in that role there, against Green Bay, whose run defense is slack the entire year. But I don't like Seattle's defense. I think that's been falling apart, and people aren't really focused on that. So you've got Aaron Jones, and you've got Devontae Adams, and is Aaron Rodgers going to join the ranks of Drew Brees and Tom Brady as the old-timer sitting on the sidelines right now? So I'm having a hard time reading this. My gut feel says take Seattle with the points, but that's a gut right now.
Yeah, we, in general, with the NFL, I would say virtually all season long, including last week, have found ways to try and take the underdogs. That's usually not a good strategy going into this week in the divisional rounds. And the reason why is just like everything else in life, a lot of people in betting and in football have recency bias. And all of the teams that are coming off these great wins are in your mind's eye. So Minnesota, Tennessee, Houston, Seattle, those are the teams that won. And we just tend to immediately gravitate to those teams and forget that of those 4 teams, you're talking about 2 of them, in fact, probably the worst playoff teams to advance, Minnesota specifically and Houston. So for me, that's the way that I view this week. I'm not a favorite guy. I'm not a guy that likes to lay chalk, but I'm probably going to end up doing it this week because in the divisional rounds over the last couple of years, it's unanimous. They all win. Do they all cover? Absolutely not. But I believe San Francisco, Baltimore, Kansas City are all going to the next round. Will they cover? We'll have to address it. In terms of this game, Howard, I feel the same way as you. I don't have a clue. I think that Seattle's running game is decimated. 2 weeks ago before the game against Philadelphia, Pete Carroll was glowing over how good Homer and Lynch looked. I thought Lynch looked horrible with the exception of one run, and I think Homer looked overmatched. Philadelphia's front 4, probably better than Green Bay's, but look, at the beginning of the season, Green Bay had no issue stopping the run. It was later in the year when they started giving up a lot of points. But that was fantasy points, and that was touchdowns. A lot different going from 20 to 20 on both sides of the field. There is weather supposedly involved in this game, so it would help to wait until you get to the end, I think, maybe on Saturday to determine this. The line is 4.5. It was 4 most of the week. It's up to 4.5 now. The total now down to 46.5 from 47. So I really don't even have a strong lean in this game. If I had to take one side, I would probably take the home team just because I feel like I want to take a lot of home teams. But the money line is just insurmountable at minus 215, and you're risking 200 to win back 100, and I probably wouldn't do that. I have a better opinion on the other 3 games, so I'm just going to pass this one.
I'll pass on this one as well. Again, I get what you're saying as far as the favorites go. I'm not looking at Seattle from a standpoint of, they beat Philly and all of a sudden now they're like, it was a big win and they're riding this huge momentum wave. It more comes to the fact of, how everything kind of falls out with Green Bay. I mean, and if they stick with Aaron Jones, then, and they stick with that ground game, then I'm okay with it. I just, I think that there's a lot of people who are sitting there thinking that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are going to all of a sudden take over this game, and he's going to throw for 300. Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like people talking like he's going to throw for 302 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, and Devontae Adams is like a no-brainer 150-yard 2-touchdown guy, and I just don't necessarily see it. I think Trey Flowers and Shaquille Griffin suck as far as corners go. But again, I think that there's to me, I think the time is spent on Rodgers, and I think that we saw that all year long. He wasn't the Aaron Rodgers of old. And did he flash it every once in a while? Yes. Do I see him doing it consistently? No. But again, I'm with you as far as that. I mean, I'm in a playoff pool where it's Green Bay -3.5. So the fact that it's Green Bay -4.5 right now kind of tilts me towards taking the Packers and just getting that value, but I don't really like it. Let's go to the game. Which game do you like the most out of the four?
I think that I like the Chiefs the most this week. Hate laying points. I don't think we've laid this in any game this year, but I got to do it this week. Andy Reid off the bye is just out of this world. He's got another bye this week. The Chiefs are 100% healthy. Their defense has been great. I have not liked Houston all season long. And the way that they beat the Bills, I have not. So I was completely wrong on them. Maybe I'm the wrong guy to ask. But I would say this in terms of Houston, it basically required two Buffalo Bills to crash into Deshaun Watson and him to just magically get out of it. But he's done that a lot this year, and even times that we've gone against Houston, he's done that. Does he have another game in him in Kansas City? I don't think so. I'm going to lay these points. I think it's a blowout. I think Kansas City's got a great shot to get to the Super Bowl, and I just don't. And I know that Houston played very well against Kansas City the last time these two teams played, but I think this is a different scenario, and I think that we're going to be reminded this weekend how vital it is to have that week off. And think about that. All of this fighting and all of this discussing that we do during the regular season to get those teams to get the bye, and then as handicappers, we're going to go against that and start taking the road teams. It just doesn't make sense. Like this is the reason why they got the bye. Now, next week in the AFC to NFC Championship, all bets are off. We'll have to really take a deep dive into it, and it could easily be an underdog. But I'm going to side with the favorite here, and I think Houston's going home -9.5.
I like the favorite as well. I think I think laying the points is the good thing to do here as well. I think I expect big performances out of Mahomes. Damian Williams, I think everybody is sleeping on Damian Williams. We saw what he did in Week 17, and that was a game that mattered. And I think that Andy Reid's going to ride him in a similar fashion. Houston's secondary is terrible. Here's the thing for me. Houston keeps coming out flat. And I'm sorry, you cannot come out flat against the Chiefs. It's just that's going to be a problem. And it took them down 16-0 down against Buffalo before they suddenly woke up. That's just not going to cut it. I don't think they're going to get the ground game working at all against the Chiefs. And then it's a question of what do you do with DeAndre Hopkins? Like the Saints, you feed Michael Thomas no matter where he is, no matter who's covering him. And yet we see DeAndre Hopkins not getting his first target until 3/4 of the way through the first half. And I think that's a problem there. So I don't care whether Will Fuller plays or not. That dude's got groin and hamstrings made out of paper. I just don't think they've got the additional firepower to do it. And coming out flat, as good as Watson can be, it's just going to be too much of a hill for them to climb. So I'm with you here on the Chiefs and laying the points on this.
Yeah, and I don't think the line is going to go anywhere. I think if anything, it goes back to 10. It doesn't seem like it's trending, and 9 is sort of a dead number in terms of wagering. You're looking for your 7s and your 10s, and I don't think it changes. But yeah, I mean, what's left to say about Andy Reid at this point? He has his teams really ready when he's had time to prepare, and they could sit back and watch that game between Buffalo and Houston and just say, okay, we know exactly what's going on. There's just a massive, massive advantage to having a week off at this time of the year. And by the way, playing in that environment, playing in Kansas City, playing at night in the cold, this is the only game that I think that really does not bode well for the road team.
All right, I'm fine with that. Let's go over to let's stay in the AFC real quick. Okay. Let's go Baltimore, Tennessee. Biggest spread right now. I see it at -10 for Baltimore. It started out at -9.5.
Went down to 8.
Went down to 8. Now it's back up at 10. So, I mean, listen, this is, for all intents and purposes, it's Derrick Henry against Baltimore, and it's Lamar Jackson against Tennessee. And
pretty much.
Which one's coming out on top? And then I think the Ravens win this game. The question is I hate laying 10 points.
Me too. And we're not going to do that twice, I don't think, here. But listen, if I had to pick a side, I would take Tennessee because I do think that I don't think they're the team of destiny. I don't know that they're going to beat Baltimore, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see this game, Baltimore winning 21-20 or 21-17 late in the game with a couple of minutes left, and then you just don't know which way it's going to go. Does Baltimore score a touchdown? Do they just kick a field goal and Tennessee covers? Tennessee has the ability to stay in the game because they can run. That's what Houston is lacking. That's why I don't think Houston can stay in the game with Kansas City because they don't have Henry on the other side of it. And by the way, I think Tennessee's receivers may be as talented as Houston's. Houston has the better quarterback than Tennessee, that's for sure. So,
listen, A.J. Brown, I like him a lot. I definitely like him a lot. But Corey Davis and Tajay Sharp, I don't know.
Jonnu Smith, tight end.
What's that?
Jonnu Smith's not bad.
Jonnu Smith, he's okay. But why, if Jonnu Smith was any good, why did they go to Ferkser?
Who? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Does Tennessee have the better offensive line?
Tennessee does have a better offensive line, 100%. That's the thing. And that was why I was big on Henry coming into the season, because I knew that they were getting Taylor Lewan back to that line in like week 4, week 5.
Yeah, Tennessee has a lot going for them. I'm not going to go against Lamar Jackson. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that Tennessee, one of two things are going to happen for them. We'll play the Tennessee side. One, they're able to control the clock, and they're going to eat as much clock as possible. That was really evident in that game against New England last week with them just trying to run as much clock as possible. If that doesn't work, in all likelihood, they're probably going to get blown out and not score. But that still tells me that 47 points, I think, is too much in this game. And I think at some point, the Ravens may have to prepare and start thinking about next week, which tells you if they're up big in the fourth quarter, if it does play out that way, is Lamar Jackson going to put a 50 spot on Tennessee? I don't think so. So I like the control the clock aspect of it, and I do think that the Titans can potentially keep this game close for a while. So I am going to play the under here at under 47 points. I think that this one is an under. Now, last week all 4 games went under. I wouldn't expect that to happen again this week, specifically maybe in that San Francisco-Minnesota game, which we'll get to. Boy, both defenses, you never know with those two teams, and we'll get to that. But going to stay away from the side here because I don't want to get burned by Lamar Jackson. But we'll go on the under in the total.
Okay, well, just out of curiosity, any kind of a lean on Houston, Kansas City's over-under? That's at, 50 right now? And then Seattle, Green Bay, I believe, is at 47, if I'm not mistaken. I
would doubt that all 4 games go under again. And on this stream, we've been a lot more unders than overs. It's always I think the smarter way to go because the public does like betting those overs. But I probably would go over on Houston, Tennessee. Houston, Kansas City. Yeah, I don't think Houston is stopping Kansas City. And I think that even if you're up 30-7, I think Houston, they just let Watson loose. He just starts running around, throwing late touchdowns, stop kicking field goals. So. So that is the scenario with that for me. And Tennessee, by the way, in terms of this, something that I think that will push the game under. Hopefully, we'll come back and we'll realize what had happened. Tennessee with a kicker basically that only kicked last week for them, and Greg Joseph. Yeah. Yeah, I think there'll be a kick missed or two here in Baltimore. I think that'll be a big factor in this.
All right. Well, then let's wrap it up with the final game. It's Minnesota at San Francisco. Listen, I've been a big Minnesota fan the entire season. I love the ground game.
I know, but why not last week? Why didn't you like them last week?
Well, because I hedged last week, and then I was stupid about it because I had more confidence in the Saints ground game and less confidence in Kirk Cousins. That's really what it came down to.
And that's fair. But for whatever reason...
Excuse me.
It's okay. Whatever reason, when Cousins plays those early games, he does well. But then anything after 1 o'clock Eastern, he turns into a pumpkin. This is my 3rd favorite, so I'll make a pick on it. I don't want to pass 2 games in the playoffs. I think that this is a great spot for the 49ers and a horrible spot for the Minnesota Vikings. Having to play that game Sunday, having to get on a plane today, travel to San Francisco. not having Thielen practice this week, not having Diggs practice this week, maybe having to throw to B.C. Johnson and a couple of those other receivers. In order for Minnesota to win last week, they had to give Cousins all the credit in the world for throwing that unbelievable pass that he did at the end of that game to Thielen. But look what had to be done for that to be completed.
Yeah.
And Minnesota almost gave that game away. I see 40 or 50 rushes coming from the 49ers. I don't have a strong feeling on this total because San Francisco in the first half of the season was great defensively, but in the second half, they seemed like they fell apart a little bit. But
injuries. Quan Alexander being out, the linebacker, he tore his pectoral. He's supposed to be activated. D Ford has been out for the last several weeks, so he's another guy that I don't think they're getting D Ford back. There was a report earlier today that said that they weren't as optimistic about him returning, but they will get Quan Alexander back in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, I think the 49ers win. I think they win by a touchdown. I think they win next week. I think they're going to the Super Bowl, and then we'll have to assess who they play against. Things have really lined up well for the 49ers because I think in a season like this, what you would expect is some stiff competition. Like, who is the second best team in the NFC? I know who it is in the AFC. I know it's Baltimore and Kansas City. But who is that Kansas City for San Francisco? Is it Green Bay? Is it Seattle? This may be the best matchup that they have. I don't think that Seattle or Green Bay goes into San Francisco and wins. And again, coming off the bye week, this is going to be close. I think this is going to come very close to the number here. But I will take the 49ers minus the points. And I don't have a strong feeling on the total because I don't know what to expect from the 49ers defense. Is it what we saw at the beginning? Is it what we saw the last few weeks? And so that's the way I would go there. I'll probably put in the crystal ball and say that the 49ers win and cover this week and they play at home next week but don't cover, but win. Okay. That's the way I'm feeling that this is going to be because the 49ers before this is all said and done are going to play a really close game and it's going to come right down to the end like half of their games that they've played this year. So That's the direction that I'll go.
All right. So there you go. So we're talking San Francisco, lay the points. We are saying Baltimore, Tennessee, take the under. And then finally we're saying Kansas City, lay the points. We have no play on Seattle, Green Bay, just too close to call. So there you go. So we'll mark that down. I'll put in my pool picks and get everything set and squared away. And now, meanwhile, we've got one game that you'd like to cover here. One more big one here.
Big one.
Yeah. I loved it. It was the funniest thing, and I'll just say this to everybody out there. Craig and I, we email each other back and forth. What time are we doing the stream and blah blah blah. This and that. And so I said, okay, great. We'll talk about the divisional games. And I just kind of hit send and that was it. And he sent back to me an email that just said, and Clemson with a little thumbs up emoji.
Right.
So then I sent back an email to him that said, don't you mean LSU? And then I got back. Then I got back Craig's avatar, which Craig, I got to tell you,
and I was
avatar, full head of hair there. I like that.
Yeah, I know. What happened to that? Yeah.
But yes, with the thumbs down on that one there. So let's do it here. I know you love Clemson.
I do love Clemson.
And you're getting.
I cannot believe that they're getting 5.5 points in this game. The line opened up at 2, 3, moved to 4, 5, 5.5, 6. This smells just like last year. The same exact thing. I don't know why. Look, you have to respect the Southeastern Conference. It's the premier conference in all of college football. They did very well again. For the most part, in the bowl season, the best teams won. Florida won. Georgia won. You cannot underestimate the Clemson Tigers. The quarterback. I think the quarterback on Clemson is better than the quarterback on LSU. I do. I think Trevor Lawrence is better. The running backs, the receivers. LSU's defense gave up a lot of points all season long. They played their best game of the season against Oklahoma. That doesn't take anything away from them. That's a great team. And LSU could easily win this game, but it is too many points. They're not going to win by 5, 5.5. That's not going to happen. Clemson hasn't lost in like 3 years. Lawrence has never lost a game. I don't get it. Last year, it was everybody. Alabama -6 was the play for everybody last year. Tua, how can you go against Tua? How can you go against Alabama? And Clemson smashed them in the face. Definitely taking Clemson again. No question about it. No doubt.
There you go. Clemson. And take those points. Why the hell not?
I
I'm
think
sure
LSU could
this
win.
line. What's that?
I think LSU could win this game. I'm not going to be silly about it. I think that they are as hot a team in college football as we've seen in years. But the Tigers showed, I thought, against Ohio State, that was the worst first half of football that they had played in almost 2 years, going back to when Lawrence came into the game against Syracuse a couple of years ago. And it just showed, I mean, that run that Trevor Lawrence had was a 60-something yard run from a quarterback like that. I mean, there's too much love. Burrow's going to be the number one pick in the draft. He's going to go on to be a great quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck. He'll be phenomenal in the pros. Trevor Lawrence is better.
All right, and listen, you know what? When Vegas throws down a line where it's not 3 and it's still less than a touchdown, they're begging you to take LSU. They're begging you to say, LSU can beat them by a touchdown.
And it's going to be a wild game. There's going to be a lot of points. A total 69.5. That's like the highest total I could ever remember for a championship game. I think that last year was in the 50s or 56, 57, something like that. But whether it was Deshaun Watson against Alabama or Trevor Lawrence last year against Alabama, and that was SEC, top of the SEC. The Crimson Tide were at the top of their game. Clemson was at the top of their game. Clemson has covered every game for 3 months except for one spread where they won by 40 and not 45. This is just, if the Tigers had played better against Ohio State, and there's no doubt they did not play well in that first half, but if they played better, there's no way this line would be 5.5. No way. It'd be 2 or 3. I mean, this is in Louisiana, but it is not being played in their home stadium. I think that Clemson has a good chance to win, but at the very least, they're covering this game. And I don't have a good opinion on the total. Although the second half, if you're playing live, these second halves of these college football games are just massive. Like, all the points are just coming in the second half of these games. So I would take the over whatever the second half line is if you look at halftime. And I'll take Clemson plus 5.5 for the game.
All right. Well, I've got an early dinner at the Mirage on Monday, so guess what? I'll probably be at the Mirage Sportsbook watching the national championship. If you guys want to come join, it's a great time. All right. Well,
I hope you feel better.
Oh my God! You know what? I couldn't feel any worse than I do right now. I got to be perfectly honest with you. I could not feel worse. It was like a disease. It was like the Ebola virus sneezed in my face. That's what it feels like right now.
So let's set you up. So next week we will be back to do the AFC and the NFC championship next Friday night. The following week there are no games. We're not going to do the Pro Bowl, I assume. So we'll take that week off, and then we'll come back and we'll do our full, as we did last year, our full Super Bowl and legitimate Super Bowl prop betting special. We'll do that too. Like the legitimate numbers, the players' numbers, the over-unders on their totals and all that. Not the hat and all that stuff. We ain't doing that.
You sure you don't want to do that? Like what color sneakers J-Lo's going to be wearing?
Super Bowl's in my backyard. Maybe I'll have some info. If I do, I will pass it along.
All right. Well, there you go. On that note, that's going to do it for us here on the Wager Alarm live stream. Big shout out to our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Thank you so much. If you guys do like prop picks, by the way, Craig and I will be doing that whole Super Bowl special there. Monkey Knife Fight, all about the prop picks. Great way to do it. Go to fantasyalarm.com. Right now, we've got an article up on there about Monkey Knife Fight prop picks for this weekend's games. Big thanks to Matt Sells, our producer, for all the great work that he does. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wager Alarm live stream. We'll catch you next time.